Our theme for today's broadcast is a place to take our burdens. We all have burdens in life of one kind or another. Sometimes they are financial burdens, sometimes they are physical burdens, sometimes they are emotional or mental burdens, sometimes they can be spiritual burdens. And many of these burdens weigh us down. They make life more difficult, less pleasant, less fulfilling. What do we do with them? How can we cope with them in healthy and positive ways so that they don't wreck our lives? The answer I'm going to suggest in today's program is that we can take them to Jesus, who said, "Come to me, all who are weary and heavily burdened, and I will give you rest." Our first song today is the popular hymn, "Sweet Hour of Prayer." This hymn reminds us the importance of setting time aside to spend time with God, in conversation with God, making known to the Lord our needs, our burdens, our concerns, our joys, and our celebrations, cultivating our relationship with the divine. Our second song for today is "Precious Lord, Take My Hand." This song was written by Thomas Dorsey. Then comes my message, and after my message we'll close today's program with a song that takes us back to the days of revival in the church. Burdens are lifted at Calvary. When I was listening to this song recently, it struck me we don't talk much about burdens being lifted at Calvary anymore these days. We've lost a sense that that's what the cross can do for us, that one of the many benefits of Jesus dying on the cross for us is the lifting of the burden of sin, the lifting of the burden of guilt, the lifting of other of life's burdens that weigh us down and want to try to separate us from God. Through the cross, Jesus gives us victory over all of these burdens. This song, "Burdens Are Lifted at Calvary," is sung by Doug Oldham. I had the privilege of hearing Doug Oldham sing this song live when I was a student in seminary. In that service, Doug Oldham also shared what this song, "Burdens Are Lifted at Calvary," had come to mean to him, how his family life had fallen into disarray. He was at odds with his wife and his children, and they with him. They were staring failure in the face. Then he came to know Jesus Christ as his Lord and Savior, and the overwhelming feeling that he had when he turned his life over to Christ was that his burdens were lifted at Calvary. This morning I'm preaching from Matthew 11, verse 28, where Jesus says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." What do you do with life's burdens? When the cares and frustrations of life gang up on you and become too heavy to bear, what do you do? When things are not going well at work, when your family life becomes a source of great concern, when you seem to be losing your way on the path of life, what do you do? There are many alternatives from which to choose. One option is simply to ignore life's burdens. I've known a few people who seemingly have been able to do this. Life throws them a curve, and they just keep on swinging. A burden that would bend most of us to the ground seems to roll off their back, and they just keep moving along. But the kind of person I'm talking about, contrary to appearances, is not effectively dealing with life's burdens. They are simply trying to outrun them. One day they will run out of steam. They will not be able to outpace the burdens of life any longer, and they may be crushed because they will be ill-prepared to handle the backlog. Another approach to burden management is to cast them off on someone else. Nearly anybody will do. There are people whose approach to life is never to take responsibility for their own actions or the consequences of their actions. If a problem arises, it is always somebody else's fault. If a heavy failure comes their way, it is someone else's responsibility. I once heard a story about a man who retired from a large corporation. He was distinguished among his fellow employees for always having an impeccably clean desk. At his retirement party, someone asked how he was able, in a sea of paperwork, to keep his desk so neat and clear. The man answered that it had been very simple. He said whenever a paper crossed his desk, he would simply write at the top of it, "Refer to Bill." He said there apparently have been enough Bills in this corporation who processed those documents because none of them ever came back. This is some people's approach to burden management. A burden crosses their path, and they escape it by throwing it in someone else's direction. If some people try to run away from their burdens and some try to cast them off on other people, there are also people who attempt to carry them all by themselves. With Herculean courage, if not strength, they take their burdens unto themselves and carry them all alone. We might call this approach macho management. It is the I am able to handle my own problems, thank you very much mentality. I'm not talking about that inner strength upon which all healthy people depend when facing life's burdens. I'm talking about the person who is so wrapped up in self that they can't let anybody else into their life. I'm talking about the man or woman who finds it next to impossible to talk to anyone about a burden that they're carrying. They suffer silently. They keep a stiff upper lip and carry their head high, but they are unable to share the hurt and the pain they often feel from life's burdens. Carried to an extreme, this approach ends up saying, "This is my problem, keep out." Such an approach effectively closes the door on help from God, family, friends, even the helping professions. In the end, the macho manager is really all alone. Another approach to bearing life's burdens is to carry all of your own and those of others as well. I've known families over the years where either the father or the mother have become the burden bearer for the whole family, and their burden bearing has gone beyond the point where it was either wise, prudent, or healthy. Dad or Mom became the problem solver, and the whole family turned to him or her whenever they were faced with one of life's burdens. The other day I talked with a friend whose young adult son has had a long siege of life-threatening illness. She shared with us how his ordeal had thrown him back into a state of almost complete dependency upon her. He regressed in his level of maturity back to the childhood perception that mother could do no wrong, that she could bear any burden, that she was very nearly godlike. Part of this young man's healing process has involved emotionally growing up again and returning to a place where he is able to carry and deal constructively with his own burdens once again. One of the pitfalls in the cast your burdens upon me approach is that it encourages irresponsibility in those who come to depend on you to carry their burdens, to solve their problems, or to bear responsibility for their failures. Another pitfall is worn-out burden bearers. They just get tuckered out, burned up. None of these alternatives are very effective in dealing with our burdens. Jesus has suggested another way. He said, "Come unto me, all ye who labor and are heavily laden, and I will give you rest." There is a bit of Christian folklore that advises, "Let go and let God." The helpfulness of this slogan is a bit limited because it doesn't define what we are to let go of, nor what we are to let God do. And it also tends to encourage a kind of sanctified passivity that says, "It's all right for me not to do anything about my problem because I have let go and let God." Jesus did not say, "Come unto me, and I will take your burden." He said, "Come to me, and I will give you rest." The dictionary defines rest as the act or state of ceasing from work, activity, or motion. Quiet. Peace, ease, or refreshment resulting from sleep or the cessation of an activity. Mental or emotional tranquility. In the military, it is a command allowing troops to relax. At ease. Relax. Jesus was saying, "Come to me, ye who labor and are heavily laden, and I will take a coffee break with you. You can lay your burden down for a while and relax. After our time together, you will feel refreshed and renewed, and you will be able to take up your burden again." Now this may sound so simple that it's almost insulting, but let's look a little farther. There are times when our minds and energies become so focused on one tree that we literally lose sight of the forest. Our perspective gets bent all out of shape, and we don't see things as clearly as we might. Often, even a brief conversation with a loved one or a friend helps us pull back and see the larger picture once again. Once we have done that, we can see our way through, our burden becomes lighter, and we are able to arrive at a satisfactory resolution to our problem. There are, however, other times when a brief conversation or a short rest cannot help us. We need a bigger block of time with someone. I have heard the late Charles Allen, who is the pastor at First Methodist Church in Houston, say that his counseling technique was very simple. When someone came to him for help, he asked them two questions. What is your situation? And secondly, What are you going to do about it? Time and again, that is what we need. We need someone to sit down with us and help define our situation and encourage us to develop an effective plan of action. After such a rest, our burdens become more bearable. And I believe this is the key. We Americans are so prone to wish for a burdenless life. We seek after the latest technology or psychology that promises to make life easier and more enjoyable. But a burdenless life is a myth. There is no such thing. There is in life a way by which our burdens can be made bearable. There is a way in which we neither ignore nor run from our burdens. There is a way by which we do not have to carry our burdens all alone, nor have to carry the burdens of others in lieu of their own responsible burden-bearing. And there is a way by which we can be saved from unbearable burdens, and that way is Jesus Christ. In music, a rest is an interval of silence within a measure of music. It has a time value corresponding to one of the notes in the measure. Musical rests are actually part of the rhythm of music. The rest which Christ has promised us can become part of the rhythm of our lives. If in the measure of every day we mark a time and place to lay down our burdens and come to Christ, our burdens will become more bearable. We will be in constant contact with the one who can help us deal with our burdens effectively and positively. These moments of rest throughout the day will regularly renew us and rejuvenate us. Life without such moments as these is like a piece of music with no rests. It is frenetic, often discordant, never-ending. "Come unto me," Jesus said, "and I will give you rest." I will give you periods of tranquility and peace, moments of refreshing that will reshape your burdens and make them bearable until the day when they may be put down to rest at last.